Welcome back to Whispers of Wisdom, where every story reveals a truth, and every truth uncovers a secret. So sit back, relax, and let the whispers guide you into the Lakeview Property War. Eric had only been gone for 3 days. A short business trip, nothing unusual. But as he drove down the dusty road toward his lakeside land, he noticed something strange. Fresh tire tracks, piles of gravel, and the distant rumble of heavy machinery. At first, he thought construction must be happening on a neighbor's property. But as he turned the corner, his heart dropped. A massive bulldozer was parked directly on his land, tearing through the trees he had planted years ago. Workers in bright vests hammered wooden stakes into the soil, marking areas as if the place belonged to them. Eric slammed his truck door and marched toward them. "Who authorized this?" he demanded. A worker barely glanced at him. "HOA project, sir. Orders from the board." "HOA," Eric scoffed. "This property isn't part of any HOA." The worker shrugged, unfazed. "Take it up with the president. We just follow instructions." Confusion turned to anger. Eric had bought this land precisely because it was outside any HOA zone. No rules, no restrictions, just peace and nature. As he inspected the damage, uprooted trees, disturbed soil, broken fences, Eric noticed something even more alarming. A blueprint labeled Lakeview Community Expansion, Phase 1. His private land was drawn into the layout like it already belonged to them. He tried calling the county office, but it was late. No one answered. Standing alone in the noise of machinery, Eric felt the calmness of his sanctuary slipping away. Something wasn't right. Someone was trying to claim what was his. He took photos, shot videos, and prepared himself. Tomorrow, he would get answers, and whoever was behind this would deeply regret underestimating him. The next morning, Eric returned to his property, determined to stop the construction. As he approached the workers, a sharp voice sliced through the air like a blade. "Excuse me, you can't be here." A woman in a bright red suit stormed toward him. Blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, clipboard tucked under her arm. The unofficial uniform of someone who lived for power. "I'm Karen Harding," she announced proudly, "president of the Lakeview Homeowners Association." Eric forced a breath. "There is no HOA here. This land is mine. I never signed anything. Stop the construction right now." Karen crossed her arms. "Oh, that's where you're mistaken. We voted to annex this area into our community. Your property is now under HOA jurisdiction." Eric stared at her. "You can't just vote to take someone's land." Karen smirked. "You'd be surprised what an HOA can do." She handed him a stack of printed papers. He skimmed them. Fake maps, unofficial amendments, and a forged notice of inclusion, supposedly delivered months ago. "This is illegal," Eric said, voice rising. Karen stepped closer. "Listen carefully. We have plans for this land. Play along, pay your dues, follow our rules, and you won't have problems. But resist," she tapped her sunglasses, "and we'll make things difficult." Her tone was icy, almost threatening. Eric refused to be intimidated. "Get your machines off my property. Now." Karen let out a fake laugh. "We'll see about that. Don't test me." She walked away, barking orders at workers while Eric clenched his fists. The papers in his hand were fabricated. The arrogance was real, and the battle line had just been drawn. Eric wasn't dealing with simple miscommunication. He was dealing with a power-hungry HOA tyrant who believed everything belonged to her. Eric hoped things would cool down after the confrontation, but the situation only escalated. Early the next morning, he arrived at his lake to find bright yellow "NO swimming" /NO fishing signs planted all around the shore. His dock was wrapped in caution tape. And worst of all, 2 HOA security volunteers stood guard like they owned the place. "What is this?" Eric demanded. One of the guards replied, "HOA restrictions. The lake is now classified as shared community water." Eric nearly laughed. "This lake is on my deed. Private property." "No longer," the guard said. President Karen ordered the restriction. Eric ripped the tape off his dock, but one guard stepped forward. "Sir, you're violating HOA rules." "HOA rules don't apply to me." Eric snapped. He pulled out his phone and recorded everything. The signs, the guards, their statements. Something fell off. Why would Karen be so desperate for control of his lake? Why target the water? Later that day, he visited county records. After hours of searching, the clerk sighed and whispered, "Sir, the HOA filed a request to extend their community boundaries, but it was denied. They were never granted authority over your property." Eric blinked. So everything they're doing is illegal? The clerk nodded discreetly. Completely. That evening, Eric returned home. As he pulled into his driveway, he noticed Karen's SUV parked nearby, its lights off. She was watching his home from distance before driving away slowly. It wasn't about community rules. It wasn't about mistakes. It was deliberate. Karen wanted his lake, and she was willing to break the law to get it. Eric knew now that this was bigger than a land dispute. This was a takeover. A storm rolled in that night, rain pounding against the roof as Eric tried to rest. But something felt wrong. The next morning, as he approached his lakeside cabin, his heart sank. The front door was wide open, windows shattered, furniture overturned, drawers dumped onto the floor. Someone had ransacked the place, as if searching for something specific. On the door hung a bright red paper. HOA eviction notice. Vacate within 48 hours. Eric tore it off, furious. They broken just to put this here? As he inspected the damage, he noticed muddy boot prints, multiple sets, leading in and out. Whoever did this didn't care about being caught. Outside, a neighbor slowly approached, constantly looking over his shoulder. "Keep your voice down," he whispered. "I shouldn't even be talking to you." "What's going on?" Eric asked. The neighbor hesitated. "Karen and the HOA, they've been planning something big. They want your land to build a luxury lodge, a private clubhouse. They've been pressuring anyone who questions them." Eric felt a wave of anger. "They can't just take my property." "It's not about legality," the neighbor said. "It's about intimidation. People are scared of her." Eric looked at the broken cabin. "Not me." Before the neighbor left, he handed Eric a memory card. "I found this by your dock last night. Looks like a camera card. Might be yours. Or theirs." Eric slid it into his pocket. Inside the cabin, he noticed the intruders had removed the locks completely, replacing them with cheap HOA padlocks. They weren't just trespassing. They were preparing to claim the cabin. Eric stood alone in the wreckage, breathing heavily. Karen had crossed the line. This wasn't sabotage. It was war. The next morning, Eric followed a hunch. Something about the lake restrictions bothered him. The HOA wasn't just trying to police his property. They wanted to manipulate the water itself. He walked through thick brush along the lake's edge until he reached the far side, an area rarely visited. As he stepped forward, he froze. A newly constructed dam blocked the lake's natural outflow. Logs, concrete blocks, and metal sheets formed a crude but effective barrier. The water level had risen drastically, flooding parts of Eric's property, including a section Karen had previously claimed was unsafe and poorly maintained. Eric felt his jaw tighten. They did this on purpose. He filmed the dam from every angle. The ground was covered in fresh tire tracks and discarded HOA-branded work gloves. They didn't even bother to hide the evidence. Suddenly, he heard voices. 2 HOA workers approached from the woods. Karen said once the water gets high enough, the county will condemn the shoreline, one said. Then she'll have full control. Eric's eyes widened. This wasn't just property theft. This was environmental sabotage. He waited until they left, then inspected the dam more closely. Buried under a tarp was a generator and water pump system designed to force even more water into the lake. It was a deliberate flooding operation. Eric returned home, drenched and furious. He took out the memory card the neighbor had given him and plugged it into his laptop. His screen lit up with nighttime footage of HOA volunteers building the dam, Karen supervising with a flashlight, smiling. Eric leaned back, breath shaking. He finally had proof, undeniable, explosive proof. Tomorrow, the HOA would regret everything they had done. Eric spent the night strategizing. He gathered every piece of evidence, photos of destroyed fences, videos of the lake guards, recordings of Karen's threats, and now the dam construction footage. It was time to strike back. By sunrise, he had installed motion-activated cameras all around his property. Hidden, silent, precise. If the HOA tried anything else, it would be caught instantly. He also contacted state environmental authorities, forwarding them the footage of the dam. Their response was immediate. An investigation team would arrive soon. That afternoon, Karen marched up his driveway, 3 HOA members behind her. "I heard you've been tampering with our project," she said coldly. "Your illegal project?" Eric replied, "The one flooding private land?" Karen's expression flickered, but only for a second. "You're overreacting. Our community improvements benefit everyone." Eric smirked. "Funny. The authorities didn't agree." Her face went pale. "You contacted them?" "Of course," he replied. "And the county. And the sheriff." Karen hissed. "You just made a big mistake." But Eric wasn't done. He led them to his truck, opened the tailgate, and revealed a laptop playing the security footage from the hidden camera. There they were, the HOA workers cutting boundary lines, dumping trash onto his land, tampering with his truck tires, and Karen directing them. The HOA members behind her exchanged uneasy glances. "This is doctored," Karen snapped. Eric shrugged. "Tell that to the authorities when they arrive." Karen stormed off, rattled for the first time. Her power was slipping, and she knew it. Eric had set the trap, and Karen had walked right into it. All he had to do now was wait. The next morning, the road to Eric's property filled with unmarked government trucks. Environmental officers, sheriff deputies, and county inspectors all gathered at the lake. Karen arrived moments later, confident at first, until she saw the badges. "What's the meaning of this?" she demanded. Sheriff Daniels stepped forward. "Ma'am, we've received multiple reports of illegal construction, property damage, and environmental violations." Karen forced a smile. "There must be some misunderstanding." Eric cut her off. "No misunderstanding. Show them the dam." The officers followed him to the far side of the lake. When the dam came into sight, their expressions turned to shock. "Who authorized this?" an inspector asked sharply. Karen stepped back. "Well, implemented it for community safety." The officer shook his head. "This violates state water management laws. This could have caused serious ecological damage." Eric handed over the footage of Karen supervising the construction. The inspectors watched silently, their faces stiffening with every second. Karen's voice trembled. "This is taken out of context." The HOA board members who had arrived to support her quickly backed away. One whispered, "Karen, you told us you had permits." An officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, you are under investigation for environmental tampering, illegal land seizure attempts, and falsifying HOA documents." Karen's composure shattered. "This is ridiculous." "I'm the HOA," she screamed. "Not anymore," one board member muttered, turning his back on her. As Karen was escorted away for questioning, she glared at Eric with pure venom. "You'll regret this," she hissed. Eric simply folded his arms. "I regret nothing." For the first time since this ordeal began, he felt something powerful. Relief. Over the next week, the investigation unfolded rapidly. The illegal dam was dismantled under supervision of state engineers. Water levels returned to normal, and Eric's property slowly began to recover. Karen faced multiple charges: environmental violations, trespassing, property damage, document forgery. The HOA board voted unanimously to remove her from leadership. Most members claimed they had been manipulated or threatened by her. Eric didn't care about their excuses. He only cared about protecting his home. County officials issued a written statement confirming what he knew all along. His land was never part of any HOA. The attempted annexation was fraudulent and void. The lake restrictions were revoked. The false eviction notice was added to Karen's charges. The workers who trespassed were fined. One afternoon, Eric walked to his dock, the same dock he once found wrapped in caution tape. Now it was peaceful again, the water clear and calm. A neighbor approached shyly. "We're sorry we didn't speak up sooner." Karen scared a lot of people. Eric smiled faintly. "It's over. That's what matters." He spent the next days restoring his cabin, fixing the damage, and replacing locks. The chaos was finally behind him, but he kept the cameras installed, just in case. One evening, as the sun set over the lake, Eric sat on the edge of the dock, fishing rod in hand. Birds chirped. The wind was gentle. Peace had returned. He took a deep breath and thought. He hadn't just won a land dispute. He had reclaimed his freedom. Karen was gone. The HOA was humbled. His property was truly his again. And after everything he endured, Eric knew one thing for sure. Nothing and no one would ever threaten his land again.